Yay. Now we are at the Luoism purview, folks. Now, for the purposes of our apostolic engagement tonight, I want you to ensure that you know your God. Which kind of God are you dealing with? The kind of God that you're dealing with is not a God that puts everything into one thing. He is a God that fragments one thing into many things so that he can have a compound whole. What that means is that if it would have been completely okay for this God to just have one people, but according to the scripture that we just read, was it Revelation chapter 5 verse 7? He's talking about nations. He's talking about peoples. He's talking about tongues. And he's talking about kindreds. What that means is that if I had a shore here, a shore, and I want that shore to have three colors, red, brown, and white, what I will do if I were God is that I will ensure that instead of that shawl having three colors, I will end up having three shawls, each having the three colors, so that we can have one that is brown, red, and white. But this is how God thinks. He will have three. One will be white, the other one will be brown, and the other one will be red accordingly. So this is a God that wants compound unity instead of having singular identities. And I was checking the other day, and I saw that we are actually 43 tribes in the country. Each of those tribes have their place in him, which immediately brings the concern of tribalism, which I want to decipher today. Because God is not tribalistic in a marginalization sense, but he is a tribe in a compound glory sense. Wow. Think about that. That he is not tribalistic in a marginalization sense, but he is a tribe in a compound unity sense. He's called the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Think about it. You being born in the 1st century in Palestine, and you're there wondering why God came through the tribe of Judah and not through your tribe, assuming you are the tribe of Manasseh. Now that the kingdom is not democratic, right? Like you can't refuse to get born again just because God chose to be a Jew and not a Kalenjin or an Abawanga, apparently. So that's just what he has chosen. And those are not things that are within our portfolio to determine. But we shall submit our understanding to the mystery that has become this God. I am coming to you. And this is what I'm saying. That we have tribes, not so that we can forget where we come from and just become one tribe called Kenyan, even though that is important and it has its place. But we have tribes so that we can begin to pursue the glory of each, the color of each, the beauty of each, because each one of them glorifies God in a spectacular form. So I cannot renounce my tribe today for the sake of national unity. I'll be united with other tribes, but then I'll ask myself, why did God make me or create me a Maasai? What was in his mind when he was fashioning me as one from the Giriama community? I will seek to know the glory in my tribe as much as I seek to unify all tribes under the canopy of being Kenyan. I am coming to you. I'll not lose you. I'm coming to you. That we have 43 tribes. But I'll just mention, for the purposes of the night, and because you folks are busy, I'll just mention 3, because I often refer to them as tribes of the beginning. These are Luos, Kalenjins, and Kikuyus. And if I don't mention yours, it's just that I don't have time. We can leave my email in the description, and you can email me later and say, Apostle, you didn't mention my tribe. What is the mystery of my tribe? And then I'll be there very benevolently sharing my thoughts, and not just my thoughts, but the heart of God concerning where you came from. So today I'm talking about those 3 because of time, right? So remember that God is always a king, even when we have democracy. Someone type that, because that statement blesses my heart just to say it. That God is always a king, even when we have democracy. So he will take a kingdom mystery and he will break it into several rays of glory. Take a kingdom mystery, break it into several rays of glory. And then when he comes to a nation like Kenya, he will make every ray a tribe. So that the Kalenjins are a ray of a certain glory. Kikuyus are a ray of a certain glory. Luos are a ray of a certain glory. Because I said I am mentioning 3 tribes that I call the tribes of the beginning. Now I need to quantify that, because what is a tribe of the beginning? A tribe of the beginning has 2 characteristics. Number 1, it received the gospel before independence. Number 2, it adopted a nationalistic consciousness before independence. Take it again. A tribe of the beginning received the gospel through the missionaries that were before independence. Number 2, it had a nationalistic consciousness before independence. What is the evidence that it received the gospel? The evidence that it received the gospel is that we have missionary institutions that were built in its regions. Number 2, the evidence that it had nationalistic consciousness before independence is that it fronted men during independence to lay hold of our republic status. So these 3 tribes are tribes of the beginning. So when God picked Kikuyus, he went to the kingdom and sought for an array of glory. That glory is called a mind for Kikuyus. For Kalenjins, he went into the kingdom and sought for an array of a glory. and he put upon them identity. Then he marched on to the Luos. He sought array, and he put it on them, which is called articulation. Now, I want you to understand that in a kingdom context, those three things are the most shining aspects of a glory. In other words, if there are three things that are most outstanding concerning a glory, we have those things that I have just mentioned. So that if we are seated in a room and there is a Luo, according to God's perspective, there's a Luo, there's a Kikuyu, and there's a Kalenjin. The Kalenjin will give us nationalism. The Kikuyu will give us a paradigm. And the Luo will give us an utterance. Remember, God could have put those three things in one tribe. And I'm not saying that if you're a Luo, you don't think. I'm not saying that if you're a Kalenjin, you don't have a mind. That's not what I'm saying. Please don't misquote me. Because, of course, such things are not spoken to babies. They are spoken to people that are willing to eat meat. Are there people here that are willing to eat meat? I see beautiful people. Please don't say what I'm not saying. I'm just saying that all these people have a mind. All these people have nationalism. All these people, as it were, have an utterance. Because I'm not Luo myself, but I have an utterance. However, we are amplifying each of those things in those individual groups. We are amplifying. Someone type that. We are amplifying each of those things in individual groups. To wit that, we will take a Kalenjin, though they have a mind and an utterance, will amplify nationalism. We will take a Kikuyu, though they have those three things, in them will amplify a mind and subsequently a paradigm. We will take a Luo, though they have all those things, we will ensure that we have bolstered the portal of an utterance. I am reporting the things that God has been educating me on, folks. And why is that important to understand? Because we're talking about the Luoism purview. That's critical to understand. Because I had, folks, possibly I would have postponed this oracle, but I had a member of parliament that comes from that region, Luo Nyanza, say that we are tired of dying. Apparently, in the my wife just remarked that in the protests that we had on Tuesday, there was another Luo that was shot in the neck. And there have been many Luos out there that are asking themselves this question. Because I also saw online some Luos asking, why are we being killed? So they were referring to their top politician in the country and saying, you are now in the government and we are still being killed. What is going on? And as a prophet that listens to God, and as an apostle that has been anointed for such a day, I cannot sit and pretend that such queries are not there. Especially so when I enter the realms of the Spirit and I find a God that is willing to make those things plain. My pretense is decimated when I enter the realm of the spirit looking for answers, and I find a God that is waiting for me in order to make these mysteries apparent. And for the question, why are we being killed? Or for the exclamation, we are tired of dying as a tribe. This is what I wish to assert today. That both altars of old and new altars are interested in utterance sacrifices. What do I mean? I mean that Joseph is being sacrificed by his brothers because the utterance of holiness was on his lips. Not just the utterance of holiness, but the utterance of the future. He reported to his father the evil deeds of his brothers, but not just that he could see the future. The mouth to articulate the days to come was with him, and he was therefore stretched on an altar and sold out. But forget about Joseph, and we shall be coming back to him. Let's talk about Jesus. One of the reasons why Jesus was killed is because his glory was the word. Jesus was the word. And that's why the Bible says that all that had him marveled. All that had him marveled. What did he have as the word? He had an utterance. Folks, in the first century, and this forms the basis of our faith, it is an utterance that was situated upon an altar. Put it more plainly, it is a word that was sacrificed. I'm coming to you. It is a word that was sacrificed. And therefore, for any altar subsequently, let's just be fair in our outlook. When we are coming to quench revolts, if you have studied Chinese history, if you have studied our own history as Kenyans, the people that the colonial masters that were killing, it is a person that was influencing others through a mouth, that was always sacrificed for the sake of peace. If you can say it plainly, then you are the one that will silence so that souls are not influenced. The sword of the avenger first seeks to slaughter the one that is carrying the mouth in an ecosystem. The sword of the avenger first seeks to silence the one that is carrying the mouth in an ecosystem. So Jesus has multitudes following him. But the question is, now that his thing is a movement, what we want to know is, where is the mouth of this movement? It's a holiness movement from Capernaum. But where is the mouth? The mouth is with Jesus of Nazareth. So remove Jesus. In other words, if you shall strike the shepherd so that the sheep can be scattered, the shepherd that is being smitten is always a mouth expression. It is the utterance that we must kill in order to keep ourselves alive. That's what I'm saying. And there's a mystery, therefore, in this nation that has been there since 1963. Let us ensure that we eliminate the mouth. So if you spoke with any of these contemporary Luos, they will decry the fact that from independence, there are certain historical injustices that have played out against their tribe. And none of them has come to know why they have been targeted. They have been targeted, as it were, politically. They have been targeted ideologically. Politically, no, from men like Robert Ouko, politically. What about ideologically? Some of the greatest mysteries, both in the church and in the world today, in Kenya, are hailing from this mouth portal. How so? Because both the fallen church has sought to take advantage of this tribe because of their inherent God-given ability, and the world as well. For instance, and this I'll say in passing, that the person that is being proposed in the spirit to carry the pride flag in this country comes from this region. How so? Because such things, for them to be downloaded in a nation like this, we need a mouth, we need an utterance. They are a comedian and an influencer, but they come from this region because there's something about them that God put in them, but the enemy has been so desperate about putting it into use, a mouth. So if there are deaths in the political echelon of the nation, let's fetch the mouth. If there are ideological deaths that are supposed to play out in order to seal transactions, let's look for the utterance. Because where the word is, that is where the sword will always be, so that blood can uphold paradigms. Where words are, that is where swords will always be, so that bloods can uphold paradigms. And I hope that to a certain degree, answers some of the questions that we left pending under neo-altars. So that this blood, the blood of a certain tribe, appears to be more tasteful than the blood of other tribes in the nation. That if we were to write down the list of names of people that have died in protests since 1992, a certain tribe would actually feature more than any other tribe. If we were to reckon that there has been more resistance within a certain sphere as compared to other spheres, then a specific peoples would be more highlighted than others. What is this thing that the enemy is looking for among them? That's a question. Because I have been a student of history, both international history and local history. It's incredible how some of them have died. They are not the only ones that have died, but it's incredible how some of them have died for no reason. I mean, you read that sworn affidavit of someone like Mukwana, the constable of police. It appears like we are toying with life. It's ridiculous. But it's something that is supposed to be very, very trifle. It's something that is supposed to be flippant from the outset. But by the time we are sitting to consider exactly what has transpired, then we go back to a certain law that has been in the realms of the spirit. Now I, of course, must speak to my Luo disciples and friends. Because I said time will come for me to talk about other tribes. Today I've just woken up with you guys in mind. It is not cheap to carry a mouth in a nation. Obama was elected, Obama being Luo was elected because he was good in communication. I personally spoke to an American and I asked them, why did you elect Obama? He said he's good in communication. We don't need to go and highlight certain persons that are holding sway both in Africa and in modern day ideological pursuits that are from this tribe. I mean, I'll spare you the grind. Folks, I have 3 things to say concerning carrying a mouth in a generation. Number 1, you become very covenantal, because mouths are the most covenantal aspects of the soul. Utterances are the most covenantal expressions of the human soul. You become very covenantal. That means that you follow one person to death. Talking of death, you vote as a block, even when you are dying. You resist the temptation to think apart from what the rest of the block is thinking. You become very covenantal. It means that all of you are flowing from the same spring. That would hinder enlightenment. It could hinder salvation. But it could also empower enlightenment. It could also, as it were, propound salvation, depending on how you look at it. Number 2, if you are carrying a mouth, you need to be wary of the propensity unto turnings. It's very easy to be turned. Very easy to be turned. Because utterances are about turning. A mouth is one of the most agile creatures that God ever made. Which begs the question of your own establishment, which is the question that I asked when I went to Kisumu. My wife lives just after the airport in Kisumu. And one of those people that were hosting us said that this is not a very developed town. Of course it is. Kisumu is a city now. I say, why? Because of how unstable this place normally is, especially after general elections. That the place has lost stability for so many times that investors don't want to invest there. The question is, why won't you learn from the past general election? Because it is easy to turn. It is always easy to shift it. And that suspends something that is called establishment. Either from a nationalistic point of view or from an ideological point of view. Number 3, that if you are a mouth people, you need to be led by a mouth. You have to understand that you're fundamentally led by a mouth. So the question is, why are you following this person? It is because of their tongue. Because wisdom says that it is the thing that I should become that I follow. It is the thing that I should become that I follow. So mouths follow mouths. A tongue aligns itself to a tongue. So why am I stuck at this person? It is not necessarily because of how they think. Actually, it is not. It is not because of how they think. For Kikuyus, it is not of the identity that they are giving us. for Kalenjins. It is because of the things that they are saying, the spirit of their mouth, which just encapsulates the history of this tribe and region from 1963 to 2025. It's a perfect encapsulation. It is a family that assumed the mouth portal of the region, and from that time onwards, they have followed them. Needless to emphasize. Folks, we are talking about the Luoism purview. And the main point you've made there is that words will always be the sacrifice. The thing that has incarnated the utterance will always be the thing that is stretched on an altar. And folks, I want to imagine that is not true. But just journey through the historicity of our country, and you'll get your answer, and you shall be satiated.